What's up, Mortgage Coach and Trust Engine community? I have as my special guest today, Mr. Steve Scanlon, the author of Rewire, one of the co-founders, and I think you're the CEO of Rewire Coaching. Is that right?
Yeah, sure. That's a title we throw out there.
All right.
You've interviewed Jason too. I mean, we just us as entities, we every 2 years we might switch titles just because I don't know, do we get bored of them? Whatever. Yeah. CEO. I'm the CEO today.
All right. And when I interviewed Jason it hasn't been months. I mean, maybe it was a month ago. We did it around mindset selling, and he took us through a really cool exercise that just in my mind would get someone in the right mindset. Like if you listen to that interview, and I'll put a link down below, he goes through a process in like 15 minutes that not only have I done personally, I actually helped my daughter go through that process, and she really got value from it. I've talked to a few friends in the mortgage business that are like, Savage, you got any ideas? And I'm like, I did my version of that, and then I gave them the recording. So guys, check it out. It's incredible. Today, it's going to be the Steve Scanlon version of that, and we're going to call it Mindset Leadership. Who knows all the different directions we're going to go with this, but we're going to talk for about 20 minutes, and hopefully you guys get some value from it. You ready, brother?
Wait. Okay.
All right.
Go.
All right. So first of all, you coach how many, mortgage, both leaders and mortgage loan officers nowadays? How many folks are you guys pouring love into and helping?
100 or so.
100 or so.
Yeah.
And you speak from a lot of stages. I mean, you're networking and speaking to thousands of mortgage professionals a year, right?
I was on stage this morning, in fact.
Love it. And how many people do you think you've coached in the mortgage business over your career?
Oh man, I don't know, David. I from time to time, and it's just a pure marketing thing, they have counted those hours on average, and it's all just whatever. They've counted the hours of it, but it's roughly, call it 34,000 hours of one-on-one coaching.
Wow. So I knew it was a big number. I knew it was going to be over 10. I didn't know it was going to be over 30. And so I wanted to open with that, guys. This is a guy who's been around, who's seen a lot, and it is 2023. There's a profit crisis in the mortgage industry. Everybody is down. They're having to reset expectations. Real estate agents, are freaking out, and they're down. And so the ability to bring leadership to help elevate mindset, I think has never been a better competitive advantage. So with that framing, where do you want to take this conversation? What do you want to share with everyone listening to this?
Because you and I have this tendency to just kind of go organic. We make up a title right beforehand, and then we just go organic, which I think is cool, provided that we try to stay within the framework of what we decided. And it's something that, whatever guest you're going to have on, they have to, in my view, they have to have some level of, I don't want to know if it's expertise, but some level of passion and understanding for the thing they're talking about, right? If we can stay within those limits. You brought me to thinking about something, even as you were saying that. I have a slide that I've been showing in some of my workshops. It's a picture of Nancy Reagan and Nike, the Nike swoosh next to Nancy Reagan. And as we dive into this leadership topic, leadership and mindset, I know it's a little bit negative, and I tell people that, like, we'll go negative because good coaching to me is becoming inextricably linked to positive psychology. So threatening and all this stuff, like, it doesn't work, right? We know that the brain operates better when it's in a positive state, when it's in a grateful state. And you and I have done so many exercises like that. But just for creativity, I'm going to start a little negative and it'll be for fun. But I did put my Nancy Reagan and Nike slide together, which was just a picture of the swoosh and Nancy Reagan. And it starts as a joke, right? What do Nancy Reagan and Nike have in common? And if people are attentive to this, it's not a very good joke because it proves a point. But the idea is they both use the word just, right? Nancy Reagan's famous line was "just say no." And Nike, obviously, their big tagline for all those years is "just do it." never to disparage the, first lady or certainly Nike. I get it from a marketing perspective. I just want to say that when we do that from a leadership perspective, I think we undervalue the complexity of the issue. Okay. So if we just, Dave, I came on here as a leaders, just communicate well, just be positive, just this, just do that,
just make more calls.
Yeah.
Call more realtors.
And so maybe I plant that because from a leadership perspective, and even from a sales perspective, whenever you hear that, or you even hear yourself say that, I often find it, not only is it not helpful, I think it moves us in the wrong direction. Because I think for me, dude, just make more calls. As if to say, what are you, an idiot? Right. And I don't know that the mindset of while if Nancy Reagan wants to tell, children to just say no to drugs, again, it's not that I disagree with that, but between you and I, Dave, if you're a 14 or 15-year-old girl and you live in, I don't know, Northern California, wherever, and your friends are doing drugs, I think just going to that person saying, just say no, might undervalue the complexity of that social situation, right? Just telling someone, oh, just do it. So I mostly want to point out that one of the things I don't think is helpful is for leaders or other people to say, just do this or just do that or just do this. I think it's a little bit more complex than that. And maybe you and I can dive into the complexity, but I don't think some of the things like just sell more or just make more calls, it's not necessarily that that's wrong. It's just not very helpful advice.
Yeah, it's not going to solve the problem at scale. So let's get into what will. So don't do that. And I, by the way, I catch myself saying that to myself with self-talk. I have absolutely said that more times than I would want to admit to people, or a version of that attitude. So tell us the better way, the rewire way.
Well, first of all, I'm going to refer to the great psychologist Carl Jung. He had this great saying that, I never pretend that I say anything this clever, because I don't, Dave. I just regurgitate other people. But Carl Jung had a saying about this: what we resist persists. He said, what we resist persists. So check this out. If you say to yourself, oh, Dave, just work out, man. Just do this, just do that. Step one would be awareness. Can you and I, even through this dialogue, create an awareness that we're doing that? Wow, did I just say just to myself? Did I just do that? Just this. And you're right. It doesn't always have to be that word, but there's some form of blithe, simplified instruction that we give to ourselves and others that if we can be aware of it, we might go, whoa, I'm aware of that. But immediately we'll go, don't do that. Here's where Carl Jung comes in. If you say don't do that, you're going to continue to do it, because what we resist persists. And I tell people, whether you like the game of golf or not, you don't need to be a golfer to understand this. But if you're standing up over a par 3 and there's a lake in front of you and you go, don't hit it in the lake, don't hit it in the lake, don't hit. If that's what your narrative, where's that ball going? Right. And we know that.
Splash.
So I already gave a couple of steps. One, be aware that we say just, and then when we do, rather than say don't do that, we move to the question you asked, which I thought was great. Well, what should we do instead? Right? Wow. So if I just myself, whoa, I just said that, or I just somebody else. Wow. A better question is, or another question is, what's more helpful than just do that?
Yeah.
And
so let me make sure I'm taking down what you're putting down, and the audience is too. And for anyone listening to this, whether it's in the Facebook group live right now, or you're watching this on our YouTube channel, I want you to start thinking about something that you're not doing, you should do, and you're having that conversation with yourself. Just do this. And there's someone in your life, whether it's a manager, that would be just, come on, just do this. And for lack of a better thing, let's just say it's making more time to prospect, because in many ways, if we made more time and we consistently had more conversations with the right people, it would solve a lot of problems. So let's assume that's a problem we're going to get after. So you're saying start with awareness, self-awareness that there's a problem. I would throw in the word curiosity, like be really curious about why you're not doing it and really honest with yourself about why you're not doing it. And then I guess I saw you nod your head on the curiosity. Let's do the rest of this lesson as though we're helping branch managers and other coaches be better coaches and mentors to people. Because I think if we do it that way, even if we're not talking to a coach or a mentor, we'll be helping them, but we'll also be helping people kind of, self-correct.
Okay, well that was a course correction right there. I can get into that frame of mind. We'll help people be better coaches, and so doing, we might help them.
Yeah, and so instead of saying do
but
it,
what you and I are laying out a process that could become an article in a book, right? You and I can write a book one day and have a subtitle for it.
Well, we're gonna do LinkedIn articles and a LinkedIn article for sure. We're gonna collaborate on this.
But you began to build a sequence. Okay, the sequence starts with the word just. Okay, just do this. I might even back up one. See, now we're going to go backwards a little bit. And this will be a little bit, maybe you can put this in the show notes as well if people want to write this down. Dave, anytime you learn a new skill, and I know people have maybe heard of this, I'm just going to remind people, anytime you learn a new skill, it could be learning to ride a skateboard or how to play the guitar. It could be anything. You go through 4 stages. The 4-stage learning model, I'm just going to remind us of it because of something that you said. Okay, so really quickly, the 4 stages of learning, you start with unconscious incompetence. This is stage 1. It's actually an awesome stage, right? You can answer this. Ignorance is
bliss.
Okay.
Bliss.
You don't even know you don't know. All right. But then guess what? You listen to one of the things that you're doing. You read a book, you have an encounter, you meet a person, you see a movie, something external usually happens, and you get thrust into stage 2, which is conscious incompetence. Whoa. Now I know I don't know. And just to really quickly round out the model, then if we keep going, we can move to stage 3, which is conscious competence. You're now good at something, but you got to stay aware of it. And then if, as the stages go, and for all of your listeners who are into deductive reasoning, you can understand stage 4, which is unconscious competence. And we hear that in sports a lot, right? Michael Jordan was unconscious, or whoever it is, pick a sports figure. It shows you my age and I'm finding him, but whatever, right? But we're unconscious. Now, I want to suggest really quickly that it seems like stage 4 is like this, let's all be unconsciously competent. I think in business and in life, for me, stage 3 is a better stage. I just think since we're talking to a bunch of mortgage people, let's say you've taken so many applications in your life and you're so good at it and you understand the nuances of the 1003 and every little bit of it. And you're like, I've been doing that for so long. I can do that with my eyes closed. I would tell you, we'll be very careful because you're about to do it with your eyes closed. So I think for me, business and in life, it almost seems like the sweet spot's conscious competence. Because the minute you're unconsciously competent, then you and I are going to do another show on awareness. And it's funny how people who are unconsciously competent might be perilously close to unconsciously incompetent.
Yeah, it's interesting. I want to go 2 directions on this. So 1, I also think when you get to number 3 and 4, it's also known as success habits, things that you have become just consciously good at, and they are your success habits that drive your success. And then I also think what happens is loan officers, and not just loan officers, anybody, they get good enough at something, but like good's the enemy of great. And so like your CRM, maybe you know how to do 2 things and you're like, check, I'm good. I know how to use my CRM, but you know what? The $100 million producer, they know how to do it like a lot better.
Well, yeah, so, but that's a whole other mindset, because you're talking about having a growth mindset. Those of hopefully us, you and I find you to be very much this way. The more you learn, along the way, you realize that the field of learning just becomes wider in front of you. Right? So, wow, I've learned this stuff. I learned to do that. And then, like you said, well, you're going to encounter someone who's even a greater master at that or something else. And especially with regard to mindset and this stuff, like, dude, do you know anyone's like mastered mindset? Like nailed.
I don't need to talk about that again.
Right. Nailed awareness. Like, actually, the more aware you become, it's like, whoa, look at this bigger, widening field in front of me, which is precisely why some really intelligent people will start to report like, actually, I feel a little dumber. Right. I got to be honest. I read some of my journals that I was taking back when I was 28 years old. It's amazing what I knew that I now don't. I was a freaking 10 at everything. I know this and I'm not, now I'm just not sure. But that not sureness comes from hopefully understanding that there's more in front of me to learn. But anyway, that's the 4 stages of learning. You said a word. And again, I'm trying to get practical with your people and leaders and originators that are on the call. Since we all want to grow no one wants to stay in unconscious incompetence. I guess if you want to be blissfully ignorant, you can stay there, but there's no way to have success in that. Then we get to stage 2, which isn't always fun. And in fact, if we really delved into stage 2, Dave, I would tell you, stage 2 is dark. You don't know. You don't know. I've actually had clients, I'm like, I would beg people, can we do whatever it takes? And we're going to talk about that to get to stage 3. And if we can't, let's go back. Go find peace in stage 1, because living in stage 2 sucks.
Right.
But there's a word or two, you used a word that was significant when we use it, because all of us are in stage 2 at some level with different things in life. Here's should is the word of stage 2. Another word for should is ought. Because you had said, to back us up a little bit, like, man, I ought to go make more calls. I should dive into when you're using that language, it has to include some level of consciousness, which is conscious incompetence. That is stage 2. But if you were doing it, you wouldn't use the conditional word. It wouldn't be a condition. It would be, you'd be acting, right? So whenever we say should, whenever we say ought, those are triggers for us to go, whoa, stage 2. Whoa, stage 2. So then the question becomes, okay, let's say you become consciously incompetent. Like, wow, I'm not doing that thing. And I know I should, I ought to. The question, Dave, and maybe we could have made the whole thing about this, is how do we go from stage 2 to stage 3? What is the ladder? What is the process? What is the system? What are the keys? What are the pillars? Pick a thing, right? How do we get from stage 2 to stage 3? If that's sequentially what causes us to grow.
Well, let's do that, because I mean, we want to get people in a great mindset. We want them to become doers of the things they need to do in this market. And remember, I positioned it from a leader, because by the way, another benefit of giving people this leadership is if you're a mortgage professional, when I look at many of the most successful mortgage professionals in the market right now, they're great leaders to realtors. Like they're helping realtors sell more homes. They're helping realtors have better mindsets. They're bringing leadership to the partners that they serve. So with that said, don't say just do this, and then we've got a sequence. Fill out the sequence for all the leaders on this call.
One, I think the thing starts with the awareness. We got to start with awareness.
Okay.
Be aware of the model. From a leadership perspective, if you can become aware, if you're not even aware that you say just as a leader, if you're not even aware of it, then what are we doing? Because you're not even going to learn anything, because you're not even aware that it's an issue.
Well, self-awareness is, I think, the #1 character trait of great leaders, just FYI, and high emotional IQ.
But isn't that funny? You and I blush over that. Like, oh yeah, just go get self-leadership. And then Dave and I can help you with our thing. Like, yeah, dude. Right. So how funny would that be? Just have self-awareness.
Well, we'll have another call on how to grow your self-awareness. Yeah.
Oh, thank God. I won't be on it, but that'd be cool.
Yeah, I know. I don't have a magic pill for that one.
So as you become aware, and then you say just. It's not don't say just. It is become aware that you're saying just. Because if you say don't say just, you're saying don't hit it in the pond. And what we resist persists. Whoa, I just said just. That's interesting. I'm curious. I'm not upset. I'm not going to shun it. I'm going to understand it. That's why Carl Jung said, if what we resist persists. So awareness, understand that we say just, and then move to an alternative. I would suggest that you already created the alternative, which was, okay, let's ask a question. You're the one that said curiosity. Let's ask a question. Here's the cool thing. I think people are already asking the question. We might just need to become aware of how to ask the question with a different tone that might illuminate a different answer. So I'm going to give you the question you asked, and we're going to practice a different tone. Okay?
Let's go.
Why don't I call on more referral partners consistently? I ought to. Why am I not doing that? Why am I not leading people like this? Why don't I hold more coaching calls? Why don't I have better meetings? Why? That's the question, okay? I want to suggest that it's a brilliant question, provided that the question can carry with it curiosity. And oftentimes the questions like that we ask ourselves carry with it condemnation. Why aren't you calling on more realtors? Idiot. You know you should be doing that. Here's the problem with that. One, we should never call other people that. But you want to hear what's funny? I'm not talking about other people. I'm talking about what we're saying to ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? We self-condemn with that language. And so let me just try out the same question with a different tone. Here it goes. Why don't I call on more realtors? That's so interesting. What do I really think that's about? You see, one explores a better answer and the other one just judges and condemns. I want to suggest, whether you're a leader, whatever you're doing, if you're doing the one that judges and condemns, let me know how that's working out with regard to the actions that you take. As opposed to, whoa, why don't I make more calls? That's so interesting. Why don't I exercise? Why don't I have better meetings? No condemnation, exploration for a different answer. And I know people, maybe even you, Dave, are going to sit there and go, give us the answer. Why don't they? You know what the answer is? Ask a better question. Because I suggest, and this is what good coaching is all about, that oftentimes we have the answer in us, provided that we know how to ask the question. You're on mute.
By the way, I really, really love what you just shared. And I want to share two little things. I don't know if you are you familiar with Stoicism?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I read a book for, over a decade, The Daily Stoic.
Mm-hmm.
And tomorrow's lesson is kindness is always the right response. And it goes through a whole, it's just, guys, it's a simple read. Like, it's this one page, but it totally puts an explanation mark around what you're saying. And, in this little, call it micro lesson in the Daily Stoic, it's like, even if someone's mean to you and rude to you and you respond, you don't just throw that negativity back at them. Like, this is how things get done. And so it made me think of that lesson that I read this morning.
I wish you would cut and paste and copy that lesson in the show notes, and people can just read that one thing. And I also want to suggest that your comment about kindness and whatever you're going to read in the Daily Stoic, I want to suggest that it applies to other people. I wonder if it applies to us internally. Because that's part of our process. If we can become aware, we can recognize we're saying just, we can ask a question with curiosity and not judgment, then it's really likely, as leaders, inside of ourselves, we have better answers. for why that is. Oh, maybe I have some unseated call reluctances that I didn't really want to look at. All right, cool. Let's look at them. Maybe it's because actually I'm fundamentally worried about failure. And I'm just saying there could be some things that you uncover by asking the right question. And so rather than you and I coming on and trying to come up with the right answers, I think what we just did is propose to leaders from a mindset perspective that it might not be about all the great answers. It's about asking the great questions and not just ones that are worded real fancy. What about a question that invokes curiosity and not condemnation? I'm telling you, when we're in stage 2, I ought to, I could probably tell everyone out there, you ought to, do more of this. We ought to. And if I do that and it's condemning, I might be right, but did I create action? Right? Dave, you ought to work out more. You ought to be nicer to your wife. I don't know what it is, right? I might be right, but just telling that to you, are you going to go, yeah, I might be right, but does it create action, as opposed to, wow, wonder what that's about? Could we explore that together? And when we're doing that internally, I think that's an incredible leadership trait and something that we can all practice.
So kind of funny, and I know we got to wrap this up pretty quick, but May 11th, so this is May 11th that we're having this conversation, and in the Daily Stoic, the lesson for today was guilt is worse than jail. And there's a little page on that. And that's the thing, guys. If we don't, deal with number 2, we start feeling guilty, and guilt is worse than jail. And kindness is always the right response. So check that out. I will put that below. And then one last question, Steve, I always found with why, it's also important to ask it multiple times. And by the time you get to like the 3rd, 4th, or 5th why, you've really got to the root. So if people are going through your sequence, like, go why, curious, interesting, well, why that? And to kind of really go down at least 3 times why. Any thoughts on that as a suggestion and a sequence?
Well, yeah, you have, again, I did this, you could probably reference back a couple of years or whenever it was you and I first talked. We all have this part of our brain called the lizard brain, and people can go listen to that again or whatever. But if you specifically around, I'll give you an example of why. If you ask, why do I do that? And you're curious, I want you to know that most people already have a part of their brain, that already has an answer. Well, why don't I make more calls? Dave, let me ask you a question. What's the number one reason you think, given whether it's true or not, what's the number one reason expressed for why people don't make more calls? I don't have.
They're too busy. They don't have the time. They're too busy.
So, but let me ask you something. Is that usually true?
No, we always have time to do whatever we need to do.
So we're uncovering a gap between what our brain says, well, I'm too busy. When you ask multiple times, you're trying to gently, creatively, thoughtfully, and kindly with yourself go, no, actually, why don't I? Sometimes when I've told people this story, like if you're driving down the road and you get angry in a car, and if my wife says, why are you angry? My first thought is, well, because that guy's a jerk. That's why I'm angry. Well, check this out. He could be a jerk, or she could be, whatever. I still have a choice over how I get to choose to feel. So why I'm angry is an exploration in me. And so sometimes when I'm in my healthier emotional states, I can go, wow, Steve, why are you so angry? How interesting. Not like, why are you so angry? So as a leader, Dave, I want to suggest that what you and I did today isn't, we're going to get you a bunch of answers. No, we're going to help arm you with really good questions. And we built a sequence to say, first of all, let's get away from just do this. Just doesn't get you out of stage 2. There, that's the title of our article. If it did, I should stop smoking. Well, just don't smoke. Oh, thanks. That's going to bring a lot of smokers to stage 3. So just doesn't get us out of stage 2, but we become aware that we're doing it. And in that awareness, we have a question, which you brought up is curiosity. And with curiosity, we can go, whoa, I wonder why I do that thing, or I wonder why I don't. Interesting. It can create an exploration. And like you said, and your brain might already have a reason. I don't have any time. Well, is that really why? Let me ask again. Why don't I? 3 or 4 times, you might actually go, oh, that's why. And when you come to that, all of a sudden, I think you're on the path to better answers for yourself than you would be. How's that?
So that was amazing. Great lesson. I love this. I hope people got value from it. You definitely, between this interview and the other one with his partner, Jason, you've got 2 things that will help you be in a better mindset. You've got some tactics, strategies to help other people improve the mindset. And at the end of the day, in a market like this one, it's all about market share, and you got to have the right mindset to get market share. So you just heard from one of the best coaches, in my opinion, in the history of the mortgage business. I know you're a pretty humble guy, but there's a different approach that Rewire takes to, like I said, helping you rewire your mind. If anybody wanted to find more out about your coaching, where do they go, and where are the best? RewireInc.com. And then what is the best place to follow you on social media nowadays?
LinkedIn. We're posting a lot of stuff on LinkedIn.
And then you got a podcast, right?
And we have a podcast, the Insight interviews. You've been on the podcast, and so and by the way, we're reframing that like we all do. The name of our company is Rewire, so we try to practice what we preach. We're rewiring things, we're changing, we're altering, and we think that's what it's really about. And so we're trying to practice that.
What are you changing to? What are you doing differently?
Oh, I think with the whole framework of where we were taking the Insight interviews, I think largely based on what's happened in the economy and the market, we're going to move a little bit more towards understanding some of the direct issues that are happening specifically because of this marketplace. And as opposed to reaching out to people and say, Dave, tell me your story, and finding stuff, we're going to go to the issues and say, how does a guy like you in leadership deal with that specific issue
today?
Yeah. So it's going to be a little bit more, and we might change it over time. I don't know. But today it just feels like there's this thirst
to
go, how do we deal with this specifically in today? And I will say, because that, we don't, I got to go and you got to go, but I'll end with this as an encouragement. There is enough darkness out there, anxiety, fear, worry, concern, fret. Some people think that's real, but all that stuff. When you get mindset right to live in the way that I know you promote, there might not be a greater single market to distinguish yourself. You and I heard Todd Duncan say for all those years about unique selling propositions, and I'm sure you've spoken about that. You want to be unique? Have a great mindset.
Boom. What a great conversation. I appreciate you, brother. Everybody, if you got value from this, give it a like in whatever social media channel you're in. If you're not already following our YouTube channel, Mortgage Coach and Trust Engine, and make sure you follow Steve on LinkedIn and check out his podcast. Take care, everybody. This is a wrap.
Thank you.